Okay, so this is part 2 of chapter 41. Based on time, we'll see what we can get done. We might even be able to get part of 42. It was late afternoon when we made it back to the highway, and Mr. Wellington said he would turn me in at the Tuscaloosa County Courthouse so that we wouldn't have Sanders' father for a judge. You think Sanders is perhaps like Sanders? Well, I don't know, but we won't take any chances. I'll drop you off and get these pictures developed and start working on the case. I imagine it won't be long before Sanders finds out where you are and all hell break loose. What are you going to do with those pictures? Well, I don't know yet. I'll have to see how they come out, and I'll need some time to study them, but I'll think of something. What are you going to try to do for me? Mr. Wellington looked at me and raised his eyebrows. Well, I'm going to try to clear you of attempted murder. I shrugged. All right. It doesn't make any difference to me. Law's going to be after me no matter what. One place is as good as another if you got to be locked away. Well, maybe we can keep you from getting locked away. There's nowhere else for me to go. Mr. Wellington put the cigar back in his mouth and chewed it. Well, we'll just have to see about that. If you remember, Moon had shot the gun into, like, the old trees or whatever. There was, like, a dead tree that they shot into, so we, like, dug out the bullets out of the gun and everything. And Sanders says that Moon shot at him, and so maybe there's some, like, CGI type stuff that's going to... CSI? Not CGI. CSI type crime scene investigative work that's going to happen there. We got to the courthouse right before it closed. The clerk took me from Mr. Wellington and sent me with a policeman to jail. The policeman put me in the back seat of his car without handcuffs. After we pulled out of the parking lot, he looked at me in the rearview mirror. You been hiding out in that forest? A little bit. I've been all over. He looked back at the road. What's that on your head? It's a deerskin hat. Well, where'd you get that? I made it. Yeah? Yeah, I got another one right here with the tail still on it. I held it up for him to see. It's all I got left. Policeman looked in the rearview mirror and studied the hat. He shook his head and turned to the road again. You got a fancy lawyer now, huh? Mr. Wellington says he wants to help me, but I don't know what he can do. That constable down in Sumner County says you've been shooting at him and killing his dogs. Judge Mackin won't cut you slack for that. I'll be glad that lawyer wants to help you out. I shrugged. You're not going to bite me or nothing, are you? No, sir. I'm not aiming to try whip up on anybody anymore. I don't aim to bust out of anywhere either. That's good. He nodded to himself. That's good. I hear you got a mean bite. I was about to tell him I'd only bitten one person in my life, but I didn't. It seemed like it wouldn't do any good. Tuscaloosa jail was a lot bigger than the one in Livingston. There were prisoners across from me and on the other side. Everybody started asking me questions right after the policeman left the room. Hey, you shot anybody lately, kid? You speak English? You got any good recipe for dog? Hey, what the hell's that thing on your head? I didn't answer him. I went back to the back of my cage and I lay on the cot. Before long, I was asleep to it all. That evening, the policeman who delivered me earlier brought everyone a food tray. I heard one of the other prisoners call him Officer Pete. We ate pork chops and lima beans for supper. Even though it was prison food, I didn't feel like eating anything and picked through the beans with my spoon. When Officer Pete returned, I asked him if he'd heard anything from Mr. Wellington. Nothing, kid. I think it's funny he adds in there, like, even though it was prison food, as if that's a delicious item for dinner. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard prison food's not that great. But to Moon, it's like, even though it was prison food, I didn't touch it. Because in Moon's mind, that's good food. Who knows, maybe it was good food. You think he's going to come back? Well, I never heard of a lawyer turning down a chance to make money. Well, I don't have any money. Well, then I guess you probably won't see him again. Earlier, I thought I didn't care whether he helped me out or not, but I was getting lonely in jail. I wanted someone who didn't hate me. I wanted to see someone who didn't hate me. How about the judge? When's he going to talk to me? Officer Pete shrugged as he picked up the trays from the other prisoners. I don't know anything about what they're going to do to you, kid. Gonna put you in a zoo, somebody yelled. I'd whip up on your little wild ass, said somebody else. Screwed up little kid. I figured these prisoners didn't like me since I didn't talk to them. I lay back down on my cot. Sit down, please. I lay back down on my cot and stared at the ceiling. 3 prisoners began playing cards down the hall from me, and another started singing. I wondered what Hal and Kit were doing. Felt like I'd never see either one of them again. What are you doing down there, wild boy? I thought about never seeing Mr. Wellington again. You dreaming about dog cobbler? I grew queasy with loneliness, and I rolled onto my side and I pulled up my knees. I lay this way long into the night, taking deep breaths and listening to the other prisoners snoring and tossing in their sleep. Somewhere at the end of the hall, the clock ticked. I heard a phone ring a couple times in the office outside, and someone whose voice I didn't recognize answered it. Even though I couldn't have felt any worse than where I was, I knew there was no other place for me to go.